Welcome to Chisholm Trail 61. Today we're going to do what I like to call a meal in a jar. We're going to do some pressure canning. We're going to fix up a Mississippi pork roast meal in a jar. And I'm going to show you how to do that coming up right now. Okay, the first thing we need for a Mississippi pork roast is going to be a Boston Butt. I got about a 4.5 pound Boston Butt here. I trimmed the majority of the fat off. You know, if there's any big chunks, there's very little fat on this one, but you know, fat like this and like this is all right. And you can see I've got it cut in about 1.5 to 2 inch slices here. And all you want to do, we're just going to cut up our meat. We want to cut it down into squares about 1.5 to 2 inches each. And then we're just going to put it over on our cookie sheet here. As we cut it. Like I said, you cut it about 1.5 to 2 inches each. And that really makes it easy to get into the jars. And then we just stack it up, you know, not stack it, but just layer it out on our cookie sheet here. And we're going to go through, we're going to do, we got a cast iron skillet rattling over there, shaking around. Cutting that too hard. My meat is just slightly frozen. Now I found that the meat cuts a whole lot easier if it's just slightly frozen. You know, you take it out just as it gets thawed good, but you know, it's still got that crisp to it. And that really helps with the cutting. It makes it cut a whole lot easier when your meat's like that. You just cut it, like I said. See, I got about 1.5 inch thick slice there. And then I'm going to cut it about 1.5 inches long. See how it just sort of goes through there whenever it's got that just a little bit of ice in it there. It really makes a difference when you're cutting your meat. Okay, we're going to finish cutting up the rest of our Boston Butt here, and then we'll bring you back at that point. Okay, we got our oven preheated to 400 degrees. We got our meat all cut up. Like I said, you can see we chopped it up in just regular, about 1.5 inch cubes there. What we want to do, we're going to put salt and pepper on it. Now this is kosher salt that I'm using because we're going to be pressure canning this, and you never want to can with iodized salt. So you can can with sea salt, you can can with, you know, kosher salt, anything like that, but you never want to use iodized salt, you know, like regular table salt. And this is just peppercorn, round, you know, I'm just grinding up the peppercorn, black pepper, putting some black pepper on it. Now, I don't like to use gloves when I'm cutting my meat, but I do like to use gloves for this part here, and you'll see why. What we're going to do, better knock that out. What we're going to do, we're just going to get in here and we're just going to sort of stir this around some. Just be sure that it gets all coated with that salt and pepper. Now, you may say, well, you're touching it anyway when you're cutting it. Yeah, I am, but I don't know. It's just a personal preference. I like to use gloves for this part here. But then we're just going to spread it back out in a single layer. Now, we want a single layer, and we're not going to cook this all the way through. In other words, whenever we get this ready to go, it's not going to be completely done. It's not going to be ready to eat because we're going to pressure can it, and then it'll finish cooking during the canning process. So what we're going to do, we get it all spread out here. Like I said, I got my oven preheated to 400 degrees, and we're going to put it in the oven for 15 minutes. And then we're going to take it out. We're going to turn it over, you know, stir it around, turn it over, and we're going to put it in for another 15 minutes. So that's a total of 30 minutes in the oven at 400 degrees. And we'll bring you back when we get that done. Okay, we got our pork here browned. You can see it just browned. This is nowhere near where it's ready to eat yet. Like I said, it'll finish cooking in the canning process. What we want to do is just take and just put it in our jars. Just drop it down in our jars like so. I'll do a couple of them here, and then I'm not going to make y'all sit here and watch me do all of them, because that'd be a little ridiculous. But just put them down in your jars, and then what we're going to do, we're doing these in pints. In pints. So we want a mix that we got made up here. Now this mix consists of 2 tablespoons of parsley, 2 tablespoons of minced onion, 2 teaspoons of dill, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of onion powder, and 1 teaspoon of black pepper. Now, doing them in pints, we want 1 teaspoon per jar. If we was doing them in quarts, then we would do 2 teaspoons per jar. And we got pepperoncini peppers. You can use the slices, or you can use the big peppers. Either one. I'm going to be using both. We want to pour just about 1/4 cup of our juice, of that juice down in there. And then we're going to want to get and dip some of the peppers out and put in there. These pepperoncinis don't make it hot, but they sure do add some flavor to it. We're going to dip some of them down in there. And then we're going to take our chicken broth. We're going to fill our jars to 1-inch headspace with chicken broth. First, I want to mash that down a little bit, though, to be sure that I'm down under my 1-inch headspace I want to leave. See, we're down below the 1-inch headspace there, and we're just going to pour our chicken broth straight into the jar. And we're going to fill it, leaving a 1-inch headspace. And then we want to debubble. Always debubble, because if you got any air in there, chances are your jar is not going to seal. So we got that done. I'm going to set our funnel over. We're going to take our napkin. We're going to dip it in white distilled vinegar. And we're going to just go around our jars. Now, jars are clean. They've been washed in a dishwasher. We've checked around the rim to make sure there was no cracks or anything in them. We're going to get our little lid lifter. We got our lids in hot water, not boiling water, just hot water. We're going to center it on our jar. And we're going to take a band, and we're just going to put it in fingertip tight. And then we're going to set it in our canner. And then we're going to go right on to the next one. Just drop your meat down in your jar. It goes in the jar really easy because we've got it cut up, in the little about 1.5 inch size chunks. We're going to pour about 1/4 cup of the juice in. We're going to dip us a teaspoon of our mixture. We're going to get us some pepperoncini. I guess that's how you say that. I'm not sure, but I call it pepperoncini. Now, I love these things. They give so much flavor to this dish. And then we're going to put that down. We're going to go to 1-inch headspace. Like I said, now you may have to add a little more or take a little more out once you debubble, but always debubble. Debubble, we're going to make sure we still at 1-inch headspace. And you can see we right there at the bottom of the jar. I don't know if you can see that on camera real good or not, but we're right at the bottom of the jar. We're going to take our napkin that we dipped in vinegar. We're going to fold it the opposite direction. And we're going to wipe the rim of our jar. Just wipe around it and be sure we don't have anything on the jar there. That looks just a little bit high. I'm going to dip a little bit of that back out of there because I know I just don't like the way it looks. Maybe we're just a little bit high on that. If you get a little high like that and you notice it, you can always just dip it back out like we're doing here. It's not going to hurt anything. And it's better to do it at this point than it is to have your jar not seal on you whenever you get ready to, when you can it. So now we got that back down to a head space, and we're going to wipe that rim again because we could have dropped something on it when we was doing that. So wipe our rim real good. That head space is very, very important. We're going to get us a lid, center our lid on. We're going to take a band. We're going to go fingertip tight. Now fingertip tight is where you can just turn it with your fingers. A lot of people do it where when the jar turns like that, they consider that fingertip tight. We're going to just put it over here in the counter. Now I'm not going to make you sit here and watch all these. I'm going to finish doing this, and we'll bring you back whenever we get them all in the counter and we're ready to go with that part. Okay, I don't know if you can see it or not, but our vent's blowing a steady line of steam there. We got a good steam coming out, steady steam. Our little lock is popped up on the counter. So what we want to do now at this point is we're just going to set us a timer for 10 minutes. And at the end of that 10 minutes, we'll bring you back and show you the next step. Okay, our timer's just about to go off here on our 10 minutes. And there it goes right there. So we're going to cut our timer off. All we're going to do is we're just going to take our weight here, and we're going to just put our weight down on our thing. You see our lock is still up, and we got our weight on our cockpit here. And so what we got to do now is we're going to wait till we build up 12 pounds of pressure according to my altitude. Now your altitude may be different, so you may have a different amount of pressure you need to can it. But for my pressure, I can at 12 pounds of pressure. I'm going to wait and let it build up to 12 pounds of pressure, and then I'll bring you back at that point. Okay, our timer's fixing to go off here, and what we're going to do, you see we're still maintaining our 12 pounds of pressure there. So all we're going to do is just reach around and cut our burner off at this point. And we're just going to leave this setting. We're going to let our pressure drop all the way back down to 0. We're going to let our little lock here drop down. And then when that happens, that'll take about 30 to 40 minutes. We want to just let it set, not touch it. And when that happens, we'll bring you back at that point. All right, you see our pressure's down to 0. Our lock is dropped down, and we're just taking the weight off of our counter. Just be sure that there's no pressure left in there. We're going to take the top off. Always be sure you open it away from you so you don't get hit in the face with that steam. And we're just going to take our jar lifter, and we're going to take our Mississippi pot roast out of the jar. Bring it over here. You'll notice that we have a towel laying on our island. You never want to set your hot jars down on just wood, because if that wood's the least bit cold, it could bust your jars. Now, what we do, we let these sit and just sit here for 24 hours. We'll take and wash them, and we'll in the morning I'll put me about 1 inch of hot soapy water in the sink, and I'll just set the jar down in there. I'll wash the jar real good. First thing I'll do is take the rings off. I'll leave my lids on. You know, of course, the lids check seal on them by taking the bands off and being sure that all of them sealed good. And we'll take and wash them good, and then label them and put them on the shelf. Now, what you want to do whenever you go to fix this, when you go to warm it up, all you got to do, you hear them sealing, those jars sealing. That's a good sound to a canner. When you go to warm them up, since they're in pints, just put about a tablespoon of flour and a tablespoon of butter in with them, and while you warm them up, and it'll thicken up, and that juice you see in there, it'll turn into gravy. It'll make a gravy, and you can serve it over rice, over mashed potatoes. You know, typically Mississippi pot roast served over mashed potatoes. You can serve it over mashed potatoes. You can serve it over rice. You can just serve it as a side dish by itself. But it'll make a gravy, and it'll thicken up real thick, you know, like a gravy consistency once you put that tablespoon of butter and a tablespoon of flour. Now, if you do this in quarts, you'd want to put 2 tablespoons of butter and 2 tablespoons of flour in it. But since we did pints, it'll just be one and one. But anyway, there you have it. That's how you do the Mississippi pot roast. If you would, give the video a thumbs up, share the video, subscribe to our channel. We appreciate all of you that do, and we appreciate all of you that take the time out of your day to watch our videos. Mississippi pot roast. We'll see you on the next one.